So the PC requirements for Ananta got recently revealed, and while it's not official news yet, it is from an official source, and some people may actually see these specs as a bad thing. But let's leave all of that talking, let's get into the video. Hey, what is up guys, it's Mordant. Now, TGS is very close by, which means that we're going to be getting a lot of Ananta information coming our way. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel so you don't actually miss out on any of those when those actually come out. And make sure to follow me on Twitter because that's where I'll be making updates first before I actually make my videos on YouTube. You can also join the Discord channel in order to be able to discuss these things with other people. But with that being said, let's talk about the specs of Ananta. Now, for the minimum requirements for Ananta, we have a GTX 1060 with 6 gigs of VRAM, 16 gigs of RAM, an Intel i5 9400F or an equivalent Ryzen 7 3700X. And for the recommended specs, we have an RTX 3080 32 gigs of RAM, an Intel i7 12700K or a Ryzen 9 9900X. Now, before we actually get into this information, I want to make it 100% clear that this information is not official. Yes, it is from the TapTap store, but we haven't gotten an official announcement from the devs saying that these are going to be the specs that you are going to need for the game. So with that in mind, take everything that you hear in this video with a grain of salt, and also bear in mind that the game is not actually gearing up for an official launch yet. At least we haven't heard an announcement for that yet. So these specs could change. They could go up or they could go down. And by the way, all credit goes to Nova on Twitter, so make sure to go check them out as well. Now, some of you will probably be asking, how exactly are these specs bad per se? So let's actually get into that. So, for those of you who don't know, Ananta is being made in the Unity game engine. This is the same game engine that was used to make Genshin Impact. And one thing that the Unity game engine is known for is the fact that it can produce games that don't require very high PC specs in order to be able to run. Now, if you want to make a game and you want that game to be a game that requires some of the highest end hardware that is available right now, then most times you would probably be looking at the Unreal Engine. So a lot of people were expecting Ananta to actually have lower specs. And one of the problems with having high specs is that, one, Ananta is technically supposed to be a gacha game. Now, it's not confirmed if it's actually going to be a gacha game, but seeing that they're reaching out to gacha content creators in order to cover this game, then it's most likely actually going to be a gacha game. And if that's the case, a lot of the people who are going to be playing this game are going to be playing it on mobile. So if the specs for the game are very high on PC, what does that say about the mobile port of the game? Honestly, I don't expect there to be that much of a difference. I expect that the Android version, most especially, is going to be very demanding when it comes to specs. If the specs for the game on Android are very high, then that means that we're going to be eliminating a large amount of the player base of this game. And the more people you alienate from the game, the less profits you can potentially make. Because even though these companies are making all of these games and they seem like as though they're interested in what the fans think, at the end of the day, they care about profits. And I don't think it's a smart move to just eliminate like a large majority of the people who could actually participate and actually enjoy this game. And that's what will happen if the specs of the game are very high. I do understand that as we move towards more modern times, the requirements for games are going to keep going up. Like in the olden days, it was easy for everyone to run a game with just a GPU that had 4 gigs of VRAM. And while technically that can still be the case these days, all you just have to do is tone down the graphics and some of the settings in order to be able to do that. A lot of people will still not like to do that. Like, a lot of people want to run their games at the highest amount of fidelity possible and also make sure that the game can also run fine. And for a lot of these people who have been able to play a lot of the games that have come out in the past with just 4 gigs of VRAM and basically specs that are much lower than this, it's going to rub them the wrong way. And while I personally stand with the fact that I think the game should have lower specs, I do understand that as time goes on, the amount of requirements that are required for a game to run will continually go up as well. And if the devs of this game can produce a game that is visually very, very stunning and can actually justify why they need hardware that is this high up, then I guess a lot of people won't actually complain. Plus, we do know that there are a lot of people who will most likely, when they get their hands on the game, try to see how low they can actually get past the minimum requirements in order to be able to run the game. So I guess in that sense it's fine, but I do honestly want them to consider reducing the specs of the game. Now, do bear in mind that these specs are not officially confirmed, okay? They can change at any time. And until we get an official confirmation, it is not advisable to make a ruckus anywhere on social media about all of these things that were mentioned. Now, the second point that I wanted to talk about is very much a very debatable point. I do agree, because Wuthering Waves exists. But this is the point. The point is, if Ananta releases with specs that are this high, it sort of sets a new standard in the gacha industry. And this is something that we've seen happen in different forms across the gaming industry. For example, when Mario Kart came out and it was priced at $80, basically almost $100, okay? We started seeing more games coming out that were priced closer to $100. And for the fact that for the longest time in the gacha industry, a lot of the games that come out are games that technically could run on hardware that was much lower than the things that we see in the tap page for Ananta, it sort of now makes you wonder what is going to happen to games after Ananta launches. Like, Ananta is by far one of the most hyped up gacha games that is probably going to be coming out next year. And if that's the case, and companies see that people are still gobbling this game up, even with how high the specs and the requirements are, then a lot of companies may just stop optimizing altogether. And then we start to see a lot more companies relying on DLSS and frame gen and all of these things. And I don't think that is something that is good. Now, like I said, you can actually counter this point with Wuthering Waves. Wuthering Waves is a game that came out, and at the time when it was actually being announced, I was going in with the mindset that just like Genshin Impact could run at a fairly acceptable frame rate on my PC, that I would be able to actually run Wuthering Waves. Until I actually installed the game, and I could barely do anything. Like, just walking around in the game drops my game to basically 1 FPS. It was absolutely terrible. So yes, Wuthering Waves exists. So technically the standard for what you can consider a high-end gacha game is sort of very high. And you can also say that Ananta is sort of like keeping up with that. So I don't know how I feel about this point. It's a little shaky, and I was actually considering just leaving it out of the video, but I guess I'll just leave it in for now. But let me hear your thoughts about all these specs down below. Do you think that these specs are good? Do you think that they should probably consider reducing them or anything like that? Let me know down in the comments. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace, guys.